What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another Cardboard Dreams YouTube video. It's been a little while. I think it's been almost a month. I just went through a move, and yeah, we're not going to worry about that. The point is, today we're going to be talking about the differences between Classic Constructed and Blitz, what it means for you as a player. I'm going to show you the rules because for those who need to get caught up or those who are just getting into Flesh and Blood, they got to know. But the reality is we're going to be talking a little bit more advanced on what it means to be a competitive player in Blitz versus what it means to be a competitive player in Classic Constructed. I think this is super important, and also, I guess if you're upset by my thumbnail saying that Blitz is for Timmies, sure, I don't really mean that. I think it's, but I do think that Blitz is not the way the game was intended to be played, and I think that the meta reflects that. The game is definitely built with flexibility in terms of, I'll get into it later, but the point is Blitz doesn't fully encapsulate what the game has to offer, and I think that in North America especially, which is where Blitz was, it was our first primary way of doing skirmishes and everything like that because it was introduced to us in the United States during COVID. Now, over in New Zealand and Australia, they started with Classic Constructed, so the shift to Blitz, I think the common sentiment is why would I play Blitz? There's Classic Constructed. And I think that's a valid point. And I think that especially with the calling announcement for USA in September, I think it's really important for people in the USA to get used to playing different formats. Personally, I'll be a little sad if for some reason the calling USA in September is Blitz format. I just think that it wouldn't be the best way. I mean, we've already had callings in the past, I think in Texas and New Jersey. So I think it's fine if those were Blitz, but I think it would be nice if we moved to Classic Constructed, or in the worst case, I'm not even ruling out Blitz as a possibility right now. Worst case should be sealed. Best case, Classic Constructed. And so anyways, let's just go through the recap of what the differences between the formats are. I will start with Classic Constructed, and I'll move down to Blitz. Classic Constructed, you have an adult hero. You're going to start at 40 health. You have an 80 card maximum deck, which includes your equipment and your core deck, as well as your sideboard. In Classic Constructed, you sideboard when you see the hero that is revealed, and it's locked in through equipment reveal and turn decision. Up to 3 copies of each unique card allowed. This kind of allows your deck to be more consistent. If I have a 60 card deck and I have 9, let's just say I have 9 take flights on Bolton, it's significantly more impactful than if I have 6 take flights on a 40 card Bolton deck. The ratio is higher, right? I'm just giving an example. And so then you have 50 minutes, best of 1, and that's kind of the core of it, right? And in Blitz, it's 40 card decks, 20 health each, young heroes. Everybody knows, if you're new to Flesh and Blood, you should know that the abilities on heroes are the same for young and old heroes. The intellect is the same. The only difference is the health. The 11 separate inventory slots, I think that's important because otherwise Blitz would be unplayable. 2 unique copies of each card allowed. I mentioned that when I was talking about Classic Constructed a minute ago. And so yeah, that's really basically what it comes down to. Both types are best of 1. So now let's talk a little bit about what the differences in playing each of them are. For one, if you're playing competitively in Blitz, armor becomes, that's the first thing you'll notice if you've ever played against Dorinthia. But in general, right, in Blitz and Classic Constructed, both heroes are showing up with armor. So blocking for 2 with an Arcanite Skullcap is significantly more impactful on Blitz, where I have 20 health, versus in Classic Constructed, where I have 40. And this is great because it allows you to have a big momentum swing, right? But that one momentum swing is much more impactful due to the format. Whereas in Classic Constructed, using the Arcanite Skullcap to block for 2, that will give you a momentum swing in the short the short span of 1 to 3 turns, but it won't decide the game for you. And I think, and I'll get into more later, but that's kind of the core of it. So, and when you get into heroes like Dorinthia, who typically, if you're running Courage, Refraction Bolters, Skullcap, and Brave Forge, that's 7 total block down to, after Battle Worn, it's 7 total block with the potential to do 10 block. Okay, that's very significant. That is 50% of your health. But assuming you don't break Courage on defending, it's still very high. And that leaves classes like Azalea, and Azalea struggles regardless because her card pool just isn't quite there. Arrows aren't as impactful as they could be. It's too difficult to buff Azalea, and the lines of play required are just not there. Her sandbox is like this big, and a lot of other classes' sandboxes are like this big in terms of their lines of play. But regardless, if you look at what armor works for her, the best you're going to get is 2 physical block, and both are blade break, which means you lose the abilities that are so crucial to your gameplay if you choose to do that. So it's really not helpful. And the arcane barrier on Skullbone Crosswrap is nice, but you're not really going against a hero that does arcane damage all the time, and it's not like it's serving you well in Kano. It does let you keep the cross-wrap for Kano, but regardless, I think I've made my point there. It also favors heroes that are more consistent, and what I mean by that is it favors heroes that don't need setup and can reliably do the same thing you want them to every turn. So I'll give you an example. Ira can easily go Kadachi, and a 1-cost attack every single turn with 2 cards in hand, so block 2, attack 2. Many people have made this point before. That's why Ira is such a threat in Blitz, independent of her +1 damage, right? Whereas with Bravo, you could draw a hand with 2 Towering Titans and 2 Pummels, and you've got to swing Anathos. And sure, that it's Anathos really keeps Bravo from sinking down on Blitz, because on off turns he can still set up and swing Anathos. But the reality is Bravo still needs 1 to 3 turns to set up something like a Crippling Crush or a Towering Titan Spinal Crush, something like that. He really does need the work, so it's much less consistent. And you see the same thing with heroes like Azalea, who, if Azalea's blocked a bunch, Azalea can't pump an arrow. Azalea might not even have a card in Arsenal. And if you're running Death Dealer, you're kind of SOL. So that's another important point to be made, is sometimes you just can't set up when you have 20 health. And so that's why you see heroes like Ira, Dorinthia, and Chain. Because Chain can make a Soul Shackle every turn. So it's more about your deck build in how you're consistent than it is about the hero itself. But Blitz favors efficiency, and this is because, like I said, of the lower health resources. So this is also why Prism kind of struggles, especially on an Aura build. The aggro build works fine in Blitz, but also if you get your turn stopped by a Bravo who's blocking with 7 attack, breaking your Phantasm, it's going to mess your turn up. It just is. And you can't afford to block an Anathos for 6 on the next turn, because you just won't be able to do much. So that's also why I don't think Prism has found a sweet spot in the Blitz meta. So let's talk about Classic Constructed and some of the things that you need to be considering in Classic Constructed. Obvious thing is health can be used as a resource now. It is in Blitz, of course, but much more. It's easier to swing the game based on where health is at. So in Blitz, if I'm at 20 health, full bar, right, and I get kicked by Ira down to 10, right, Ira's got 1 resource and a card in hand. If Ira Razor reflexes me and I don't have a response, I go down to 7, and at that point, I'm within kill range of a Kadachi Command and Conquer, a Kadachi E-Strike, a Kadachi Torrent of Tempo, Kadachi Flying Kick. I'm essentially in the big threat range of, if I take a non-Kadachi attack, I'm going down to 3 or 4, which at that point, a Kodachi is doing 25 to 50% of my health. And you see similar things with Dorinthia, right? You don't want to be at 3 health because if you get routed, you're dead. Assuming you don't have a Sigil of Solace or another defense reaction. And also with Chain, you don't really want to, especially if you're running Null Rune, which depending on the hero, you probably won't because you'd rather be efficient on your end than worry about what Chain's doing. You don't want to be in the 2 to 3 health range because the arcane damage can just get through. Especially at 1 health, if they've got a Vexing Malice, you're doomed. So, with that point aside, let's move on to Classic, Constructed, and yeah, that didn't work. I thought I was going to make the window bigger. Regardless, so yeah, health is more of a resource in Classic Constructed. And because of that, you can play slower, and you're probably going to see more of your deck. You won't have many games that, in Blitz, you'll have games that finish in 2 to 3 turns, sometimes even 1 turn. And you can also you can play more heroes that use health as a resource, like Bravo, Azalea, and Dash, right? Especially that mid-range kind of control-y deck. You kind of have an option based on how you sideboard. I'm not a big fan of the heavy defense reaction Dash that gets out the items and then attacks late game. I prefer to adjust mid game, but still get out those induction chambers. But either way, Dash can use health as a resource to basically say, I'm going to get this induction chamber that you can do nothing about, unless you've got Arg Smash and your Rhinar, but it's a different story. Another great part about Classic Constructed that I think is underrated, we do see potions in Blitz. We see it on Dorinthia. I'm trying to think. I think maybe some chains run it just in case they're playing against a Prism but in reality, like, potions are much less effective because you're using an action point, or at least you're using the action point off of a go again to put out this potion. And if you sacrifice further attack pressure, you might not have enough health resources the next turn to hold your hand and make use of that potion later in the game. Whereas in Classic Constructed, you can get those potions out turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, or even towards the end of the game and still have them be impactful. And I think that potions are extremely underrated aspect of the game. But I do see, the new chain meta where you run the time snap for Prism is super awesome. Then Classic Constructed is based and Kiwi pilled. And I guess what I mean is, like, it's how the game was meant to be played. And the point about this is, like, the idea is with Classic Constructed or with Blitz, the goal is you have a goal. You have, like, your hero as an identity, and you have power cards. But the problem is you can't respond to the meta by clever and creative sideboarding. So it limits the goals that your deck can have, right? So, for instance, like, it's much harder to play aggro Katsu and Blitz because you can't sideboard, meaning if you put in too many defense reactions in Blitz on an aggro Katsu, you're not going to be able to actually play aggro, right? Whereas in Classic Constructed, the game is spaced out more so you can focus on getting a few good turns and stopping your opponent's few good turns, if you catch my drift on that. There's more variety in deck archetypes, so I just touched on that, is because you have more health resources, because you can sideboard, there's more flexibility in what you can do and how you can respond to the meta and the heroes that you're playing against in a particular tournament. And I think the particular exercise of sideboarding is so important for players. I think it really helps you understand how to build a deck and be a little bit. I just love the creativity that it allows you, because one person can say, yeah, I think you need to have Nourishing Emptiness in your Katsu deck to deal with Prism. Someone else might say, no, you need Brutal Assault. Someone else might just say, I don't really care. I'm not going to run a 6 attack because I feel like it gets in the way of what I'm doing. Or you can toss it in the sideboard and say, I'll only play it if I'm playing against Prism, which I really, really enjoy. It allows for a little bit more counterplay and creative decision making. And I think the last point I have here, nope, that was it. That was actually it. Is it really allows you to be more creative, and I think it brings out skill in players, and ultimately that's why I play this game. Is I want to experience the widest range of what these cards have to offer. I think LSS has designed a brilliant game. So regardless of what your opinion is, where you stand, like, I don't think there should be like a war for Blitz and Class Constructed. I don't want to start that. That is not what this is about. But rather, if you have yet to play Classic Constructed, please go give it a try and see if you can try to rope those friends in your Discord server or your locals. Be like, hey guys, let's go ahead and give it a crack. Which, regardless, I have a feeling that LSS is going to announce some major Classic Constructed tournament in the U.S., and I think once that does, we're really going to see play pick up in Classic Constructed format. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed just hearing me ramble about this stuff, there's going to be much more detailed content coming in. We're going to be doing more deck tech stuff. A lot of exciting stuff coming up. I won't really call it out. Well, I'll call it out right now. I'm in charge of the Kitchen Table TCG competitive team. So if you haven't watched Louis' video, like, how are you watching mine, right? I'm in charge of that team, and so we're going to be having some extra special content coming out for the entire competitive Flesh and Blood community. So look forward to that. But with that being said, like, subscribe. This has been Cardboard Dreams, and I'll see you next time. Peace.